Hi fans! And welcome to my video. So, since last week's video, my channel, it seems, has undergone a little bit of growth spurt, which is great. So, welcome to the newcomers, and thank you. As I wanted to do this video as a direct sort of continuation of that topic, and I feel the need to make my own video on the TERFs, because the thing is, now is the right time, whereas before I felt like all of these videos were ubiquitous these days on YouTube, and I hadn't done anything like this before because I didn't want to risk redundancy in the field. However, since last week, I feel the need to clarify my position. The reason being that I just need to really be clear about my thoughts, my position on radical feminism, why I hold these beliefs, my arguments to debunk the radical feminism narrative, and it's just necessary that I do that now. So, this argument I see quite regularly proposed thusly: are genital preferences transphobic? Well, I've got to break that down a little bit in order to analyse and come up with an answer. So firstly, if anyone, female, male, gay, straight, cisgender, transgender, whoever, if somebody doesn't want to sleep with someone on any basis, whether it's because of genitals or whatever, then they shouldn't be pressured into sex. No one should. Consent is key here, okay? Anyone who is a TERF or a TERF sympathizer claiming that trans activists coerced lesbians into sex with someone that they don't want to should stop blaming the trans community as a whole. And if any such incident happens, report any such isolated crime, because responding with trans exclusionary or trans denial hate speech is clearly wrong. Secondly, the problem I have with the TERF narrative is that it's playing the victim so much. And I'm sorry, but it's kind of hard to feel sorry for all you cis people as someone who's trans and experiencing dysphoria and oppression for not being recognized as my gender. Why do you get to play the victim again? Now, from what I understand, the TERFs believe that they are oppressed in a way that's unique to cisgender women, but that sort of invalidates any and all trans oppression. Like, trans people haven't been marginalized or victimized or denied rights or recognition in the past enough already. I mean, history proves that. So, a lot of the TERF agenda is completely full of holes because it conflates sex and gender, and also relies on gender norms to explain gender identity, which have been found to be separate things. Okay, so TERFs use biology to divide people by their genitals, and they claim strict adherence to genitals, chromosomes, hormones, etc. in order to explain what sex is. And then continue by denying intersex people their experience, their existence, and call them anomalies, when what they're really concerned with only is sex with people with penises. So all of the rest of that narrative is just mental gymnastics to try and explain something that they really don't need to. Now, I'm not saying that trans and cisgender people don't have differences. Obviously, there is a difference, otherwise there wouldn't be a different word for it. Now, both in terms of life experience and in physical biology, medically speaking. For example, a trans woman and a cis woman have different needs based on their anatomy. For example, cervical screening. A cisgender woman needs that, where a trans person doesn't, because trans women don't have cervixes. And again, no one is denying that. There are differences, but it doesn't stop trans people needing to be seen as their gender or needing to be treated as human beings with rights and dignity. So, a lot of the issues, specifically, let's talk about London Pride. Now, the protesters at London Pride were using hypocritical language. I'm not transphobic. I don't have a problem with trans people, but... I'm sorry, no. That but just completely negates everything that you previously just said. And using... For example, if they consider themselves not transphobic just by using someone's preferred pronouns, that doesn't necessarily make them not transphobic. There are other ways in which you can do that. For example, handing out transphobic literature. But no, their rhetoric is that people with penises are men and people with vaginas are women, and that biology determines sex, that gender is a social construct determined by that, and that's all there is to it. There is no gender. Well, again, that completely contradicts trans people's personal experiences with gender. And their literature put the words gender identity in quotation marks to further invalidate the trans experience. Similarly, you know, anyone could say, oh, I don't hate black people. I have a black friend. I just wouldn't date one. And yes, that statement would obviously be racist. So why is what they're saying not transphobic? And if someone does believe that about someone who's black or someone who's trans, then what exactly is the purpose of trying to shout that the loudest from the rooftops? I mean, do you actually actively want segregation instead of integration? Another part of the trans rhetoric that's really, the TERF rhetoric, sorry, that's really harmful, is that it asserts that men put on dresses and call themselves women, but what they're actually doing is seeking to conform to harmful stereotypical gender roles and norms in order to further oppress women, which again really isn't true. Just by talking to some trans women, you'll find out that no, trans women are just as likely as cisgender women to say fuck society, because they see just how BS these behaviours are, because of how society has treated them in the past with regards to gender norms that don't match what their gender actually is. They will also make the claim that trans women grew up with male privilege, while this literally washes over years of gender confusion, harassment, and bullying based on gender-specific social norms. Now, no one marginalized group understands feminism more than trans people. Despite that, yes, our experiences are different, they share a ton of similarities, the biggest of which is institutionalized oppression and erasure. Trans erasure is even worse because it's real. No one is denying the existence of women. Rather, that argument is what it means to be a woman. But still, there are large swathes of people today who deny that transgender people are even real, that their experiences are real, and they claim that being trans is a delusional mental disorder. God, I fucking hate that. So, with regards to respect and consent in sex, every trans person I know, including me, who is playing the dating game, is extremely careful when it comes to the issue of genitals. And I feel like I have to disclose to all my prospective partners at the appropriate time, if they don't already know, about my trans status and what that means, because I know that it matters, and I would never try and force anyone to do sex that doesn't want to, based on whatever reason. Now, dating and sex is so personal and intimate that genitals do matter, and if someone can see me, my personality, my identity, can see past genitals, then that's great. You know, that's full acceptance. And if someone can't see past that, it does raise the question of whether or not that person does accept my identity as female or non-binary, which would be one pretty accurate definition of transphobia. And I'm not even going to get into the topic of women's only spaces like public bathrooms, because I made my view pretty clear about that in the last video. But I will add this. I have been to female toilets with some, girlfriends, and they can attest, they can tell you that I have never done anything inappropriate, and all of these scaremongering claims are completely false. And I think you'll find that that's the same with every trans woman ever. So, back to the London protests, the leaflets in particular, and the protesters act as if just because I'm trans female means that I want to stick my dick into every lesbian. Now, I'm not even into women, which shows their inability to separate sexual orientation from gender identity. And with all the available resources these days, such as the internet and social media, it's just plain sad. I mean, their agenda is most obviously hypocritical, screaming about lesbian erasure, literally while handing out the pamphlets which deny trans identities. I'm sorry, I think that is what I would call erasure. Denying trans identities. Now, with all that being said, I am aware of a very minute minority of trans activists who do spread hate and violent threats against TERFs, which clearly, death threats and coercion of sex is wrong, like I've already mentioned. And I condemn anyone that does that, but I'm not hearing anything of that outside of one or two isolated incidents, and in the meantime the TERF narrative is spreading across the world like wildfire. Now, I am not attacking TERFs personally, and I will not advocate for silencing speakers because it's problematic in itself, but somehow I've been painted as a far-left extremist by people in the comments section, when in reality my views are moderate left-wing. And yes, those commenters who spouted vitriol with no constructive criticism got deleted for obvious reasons. So, to sum up, as I put as a comment to another video, the issue here isn't about feminists versus trans people. It's radicals versus radicals, and the rest of us are just swept up in the crossfire of identity politics. The trans community just wants to be able to present as the gender identity and be accepted as such by all of society. Is that so wrong? If you don't want to sleep with someone, you don't have to sleep with someone. There is no coercion here. This is a lie. Anyway, have good sex, have fun sex, have safe sex. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.